Hello students, today in this video we are going to study the chapter Footprints Without Feet from our book Footprints Without Feet. The story is about a scientist named Griffin. He discovers the rare chemicals which can make a man invisible, but at the same time the man can be touched and felt physically. Now let's read out this story to find if he uses or misuses his powers for his own. Two boys suddenly noticed a few muddy imprints of bare feet. They started wondering that what was a barefoot man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London. They also started thinking that where was the man as he was nowhere to be seen. They suddenly saw another footmark. The man was still not visible. They started following the footprints. They followed them until the footprints became invisible. They had been following a scientist who had discovered how to make the human body transparent or invisible. It was Griffin, the scientist, who had been working for a long time to see how to make the human body invisible. Suddenly, one day, he consumed certain drugs which made his body invisible, though it could be felt. Griffin was a lawless person, as he had once burned down the house of his landlord, who was trying to throw him out of the house, and then, as he wanted to be invisible, he had to remove his clothes and then roam around without clothes and without money. His presence was felt after he stepped in some mud, and his footprints could be seen as he walked. स्टोरी की शुरुआत होती है, दो बच्चे हैं और वो फुटप्रिंट्स को फॉलो कर रहे हैं और उस आदमी को खोज रहे हैं जो बेयरफुट घूम रहा है, बट वो दिखता नहीं है. सडनली वो फुटप्रिंट्स उनको दिखते हैं अपीयर होते हुए और फिर धीरे धीरे गायब हो जाते हैं. ये जिसके फुटप्रिंट्स थे वो ग्रिफिन नाम का साइंटिस्ट है जो एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहा होता है हाउ टू मेक ह्यूमन बॉडी इनविजिबल, और एक बार वो खुद ही उन ड्रग्स को कंज्यूम कर लेता है. और वो एक लॉलेस पर्सन है, मतलब कानून को नहीं मानता है, और वो अपने लैंडलॉर्ड का घर जला देता है क्योंकि वो उसको घर से निकाल रहा होता है. आफ्टर दैट वो बिना कपड़ों के और बिना पैसों के लंदन की गलियों में घूम रहा है. He easily escaped the boys who had followed him, but he had many more adventures coming up. He had chosen a bad time to wander in London, as it was winter season going on and the air was bitterly cold. He decided to stay inside a store for warmth. As he went inside the store and closing time arrived, the doors of the store were shut and nobody was there inside. He got food to eat and wore new clothes without paying for. He became visible again as he wore shoes, overcoat and a hat. He then found cold meat and coffee in the kitchen and ate them. After that, he also had sweets and wine from the grocery store. Then he slept on the pile of quilts kept nearby. And could not wake up on time. Next morning, when the assistants came and started approaching him, he became nervous and started running away. Then the assistants started chasing him as well. He escaped only because he quickly removed his new clothes. Again, he was invisible and naked, without any money, in the chill air of January. This time, he decided to try the clothing of the theatrical world, as he knew that he would surely find something there to cover his face with. He quickly reached Drury Lane, the center of the theatrical world, as he was shivering with cold. He found a shop according to his needs and entered it. He came out wearing bandages around his forehead, false nose, side whiskers and a hat. वो डिसाइड करता है कि थिएट्रिकल वर्ल्ड, जहाँ लोग थिएटर में परफॉर्म करते हैं, उस जगह पे जाने के लिए, और वहाँ उसे अपने फेस को कवर करने के लिए कुछ ज़रूर मिलेगा। फिर वो वहाँ जाता है क्योंकि काफ़ी ज़्यादा ठंड है बाहर, और उस शॉप से वो काफ़ी कुछ बैंडेजेस और फॉल्स नोज, हैट, साइड विस्कर्स ये पहन के बाहर आता है। Then, as he did not have any money, he attacked a shopkeeper and robbed him of all his money. Then he felt that London was too crowded and decided to go to a small village nearby, Iping. He took a train and booked 2 rooms in the local inn. Inn here represents a hotel. The event of a stranger coming and staying at the inn in the winter night was not a normal thing to happen in Iping, and everybody started talking about it also because Griffin looked very strange. Iping गांव में एक स्ट्रेंजर का आना ठंडी के समय में इट्स नॉट अ नॉर्मल थिंग, और दूसरी चीज़ ग्रिफिन काफ़ी स्ट्रेंज दिख रहा था। The landlord of the inn where Griffin stayed, Mrs. Hall, made a lot of efforts to be friendly with Griffin, but he did not want to talk. He clearly told her that his reason for coming to Iping was for peace and quietness, and he did not wish to be disturbed in his work. Also, he told her that an accident had affected his face, due to which he had to cover it. हॉल की जो मालकिन है मिसेस हॉल, वो उससे काफ़ी फ्रेंडली होना चाहती हैं, और ग्रिफिन उनसे बात नहीं करता है। उनको बताता है कि वो यहाँ पीस के लिए आया है और वो अपने काम में डिस्टर्बेंस नहीं चाहता है, और उनको ये भी बताया कि एक एक्सीडेंट हो गया है जिससे उसका फेस अफेक्ट हुआ है, इसलिए उसने उसे कवर कर रखा है। The landlord's wife, Mrs. Hall, accepted that her new guest was a strange scientist and was ready to excuse his temper and habits as he had paid her in advance. Then the time came when his money was over and he had no ready cash available for further payment at the inn. He had to pretend that he was waiting for a check which could arrive at any moment. Then something really strange happened. उसके पैसे ख़त्म हो जाते हैं और वो ऐसा शो करता है कि उसका जो चेक है वो जल्दी ही आने वाला है। तभी कुछ अजीब होता है। इनमें. The clergyman and his wife were awakened by some noises in their study room. Clergyman just like हमारे ministers होते हैं, so they are like the ministers, उस गांव के हैं वो, और वहाँ उनके स्टडी रूम में कुछ नॉइज होता है. When they were coming downstairs, they could hear the sound of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. The clergyman held a metal rod in his hand and flung the door open, and as soon as he opened the door, he said surrender, as he thought he had caught the thief. To their surprise, they could not see anyone. They looked under the desk, behind the curtains, and also up the chimney, but the person was nowhere to be seen. Yet the desk had been opened and the housekeeping money was gone. Then the clergyman kept on saying extraordinary affair the whole day because he was shocked by the incident. But the things that happened with Mrs. Hall's furniture were much more fascinating. Mrs. Hall and her husband woke up very early and were surprised as the door to the guest room was opened. Usually, his room's door remained closed and locked. He used to get very angry if anyone tried entering his room. It was an opportunity, and Mrs. Hall did not want to miss it. They decided to investigate when they saw that nobody was inside the room. His bed sheets were cold, which showed that he must have been up for a while, and also all the bandages that he used to tie around his face were lying around the room. लैंडलॉर्ड की वाइफ मिसेस हॉल काफ़ी सरप्राइज थी कि वो उसका गेट खुला हुआ है और वो जनरली अपने कमरे में किसी को आने नहीं देता है. सो इट वॉज एन अपॉर्चुनिटी मिसेस हॉल के लिए कि वो इन्वेस्टिगेट कर पाएँ. अंदर जाने पर पता चलता है कि जो बेड शीट है वो काफ़ी ठंडा है. इसका मतलब कि वो काफ़ी देर पहले वहाँ से चला गया है. और दूसरी चीज़, जो बैंडेजेस वो फेस पे टाई करके रखता है वो रूम में पड़े हुए हैं. Suddenly, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ear, and Griffin's hat that was lying on the bedpost flung towards Mrs. Hall and hit her on her face. तभी मिसेस हॉल को स्नीफ छींकने की आवाज़ सुनाई देती है और ग्रिफिन का जो हैट है वो बेड पोस्ट पे लटका हुआ था वो उड़ के उनके फेस से टकराता है. देन द चेयर इन द रूम डैश्ड इटसेल्फ हिटिंग मिसेस हॉल इन हर लेग्स. एज दे गॉट स्केयर्ड, मिसेस हॉल एंड हर हस्बैंड वर गोइंग आउट ऑफ द रूम when the chair closed the door, and suddenly a sound of slamming the door and locking were heard. एक चेयर अपने आप को घिसते हुए उनकी तरफ आती है, उनके पैरों में लगती है. डर से दोनों लोग वहाँ से भागते हैं और फिर दरवाज़ा बंद होने की आवाज़ आती है. This terrorized Mrs. Hall, and she was about to fall down from the stairs. She was convinced that there were spirits in her inn's room and that the stranger had caused this to happen. उनको लगता है कि उनके इन में स्पिरिट्स आ गई हैं, घोस्ट आ गए हैं और ये सब किसने किया है? स्ट्रेंजर ने किया है. She moaned that her mother used to sit in the chair which hit her legs and thought that how could it rise up against her. बताती हैं कि वो मम्मी उनकी उस चेयर पे बैठती हैं और वो चेयर उनको कैसे इस तरह से हिट कर सकती है। The neighbors of Mrs. Hall thought that it was witchcraft which had caused such a thing to happen. When the news of the burglary at the clergyman's house reached other people in the town, everyone started suspecting the strange scientist. Suspicion grew stronger on him when he produced ready cash for his payment at the inn, even though he had told some times back that he did not have money and was waiting for a check to arrive. क्लेर्गी मैन के घर में चोरी का जो न्यूज़ है वो सबको पता चल जाता है और सब लोग डाउट करते हैं कि ये काम साइंटिस्ट ने किया है और सस्पिशन और बढ़ जाता है क्योंकि वो कैश में इनमें पेमेंट कर देता है और कुछ समय पहले उसने बताया था कि वो चेक का इंतज़ार कर रहा है। The village constable was called for and Mrs. Hall did not want to wait for him. She went straight to Griffin as he had appeared from the empty bedroom at the inn. She asked him what had he been doing upstairs to her chairs and furniture. She also asked him how did he come out of the empty bedroom or entered the locked bedroom. कांस्टेबल को बुलाया जाता है और मिसेस हॉल इंतज़ार नहीं करती और उसके कमरे में जाके उससे पूछती हैं कि वो उनके चेयर्स और फर्नीचर के साथ क्या कर रहा है और दूसरी चीज़ कि वो जो रूम बंद था उसमें वो कैसे एंटर किया। The scientist became really angry and started shouting that they don't understand who or what he was and decided to show them the truth. He removed the bandages, whiskers, spectacles, and also his nose. It took him just a minute to do all this, and the people in the bar were horrified as they looked at the headless man. Mr. Jaffer, the constable of the village, was surprised as he saw that he had to arrest a man without any head. साइंटिस्ट गुस्सा हो जाता है और उन पे साउट करता है, चिल्लाता है कि वो उसको नहीं जानते और उनको वो सच्चाई दिखाना चाहता है। वो फटाफट अपने बैंडेजेस, विस्कर्स और स्पेक्टिकल्स को और अपनी फॉल्स नोज को भी हटा देता है और ये देख के कि एक हेडलेस मैन को अरेस्ट करना है, जाफर भी काफ़ी सरप्राइज होता है। बट जाफर still wanted to do his duty as he knew that the magistrate wanted him to arrest the person and it did not matter that he had a head or not. As he threw away more and more of his clothes, he became more and more invisible and finally, after Griffin removed his shirt, he was nowhere to be seen and Jafar was struggling to arrest a man who had become completely invisible. People who tried helping Jafar were also struggling as they were hit by blows from nowhere. लोग जो हेल्प करने की कोशिश कर रहे थे उनको मुक्के पड़ रहे थे पता नहीं कहाँ से। एज ग्रेफिन जो था वो कम्प्लीटली इनविजिबल हो गया था और उनको मार रहा था। As Jaffers made his last attempt to catch hold of the invisible man, he was knocked unconscious by the invisible man. जाफर आखिरी कोशिश करता है उसको पकड़ने की, बट वो इनविजिबल मैन ग्रेफिन द्वारा मारने से बेहोश हो जाता है। Everybody was shouting, "Hold him!" repeatedly, but Griffin had set himself free from them and nobody could understand how to catch. ग्रेफिन वहाँ से बच के निकल जाता है और लोगों को समझ में नहीं आता है कि उसको कैसे पकड़ें। सो हियर वी कम टू द एंड ऑफ दिस स्टोरी। थैंक यू।